Hi, I'm Patti Kennedy. I'm one of the artists with the Lodi Community Arts Center. And today I'd like to show you how to do an acrylic pour. So I'll show you some examples. So an acrylic pour is basically you take acrylic paint and you pour it on the canvas. But there is a method to it. So you can use acrylic paint, painter's paint, or you could even use craft paint. This is a great project if you have a lot of bottles of craft paint around the house. You can use a lot of it up this way. I also have Flood on hand, and I've diluted that Flood. Here it is diluted. I do 1 cup of Flood to 2.5 cups of water. Flood is an additive for house paint. It helps the paint flow on your walls. It is a latex product. You can find it at Home Depot, Lowe's, and I believe Ace Hardware. If you have a latex sensitivity, avoid using it. You can just use water. It just helps a little bit. I also have a can of silicone spray. Again, you don't necessarily need this. It can help. Let me show you what the silicone spray does. So when we do our pour, what we're hoping to get are these wonderful reactions with the paint. We call those cells. And I can encourage those cells to change a little bit by using the silicone spray. So you see where the smaller little cells are? That was the silicone going in on that. So let me show you here. I used quite a bit of the silicone spray, and you can see how it created that nice pebbly effect. Okay. So I've got my additives over here. And actually I can put this aside. I won't need my Flood because I've already added it to my paint. And some of my paints I've used tube acrylic. Some of it is craft paint. But the important thing is that I have diluted it. So it is quite thin. And I have it all ready to go. So let me show you how thin that is. I also have quite a bit of white acrylic that I've thinned quite a bit. You can see how watery that is. And I'm going to use the white acrylic when I do my pour to make a puddle on my canvas before I pour my paint on. And that puddle helps to move my paint around. So I have my paint set up, ready to use. I have some canvases here, and actually these are canvases that have been banged up quite a bit. I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time doing a painting on them and then find out that the flaws in the canvas showed through, but it works for a pour, so I'm going to use them for a pour. So I'm going to put my canvases aside. So over here I have a measuring cup that I have propped up so it will be on an angle. And I usually use this measuring cup because it's nice and easy. You can also just use a plastic container. You want to make sure that it's pretty smooth here. You don't want to have ridges that will stop the paint from flowing. And again, I want to keep that on an angle. And I'm going to pour my paint into my cup so that it goes slowly down the side into the bottom. I don't want to move the cups around too much when I'm pouring the paint into them. It's like you're making one of those fancy cocktails with all those layers in it. Not that I've ever been able to do that. I'm also going to think about how what I pour in first will be on the bottom, but when I pour it onto my canvas, it'll be on the top. And then the paint reacts with one another as you do the pours. So I've got a collection of paints here, and I'm just going to put things in there just in case I need them. I don't want to have to stop. So I've got stir sticks in everything. I have tried to get the lumps out of my paint. This cobalt blue is the lumpiest, but it is fairly smooth. Now, if you're worried about getting the mixture right, it's okay. It's not that big a deal. You just want it fairly thin. You don't want it to, You don't want it to move slowly like a bottle of ketchup. You want it to flow. All right, so here is my pour cup. I'm going to start by putting some gold in there, and I hope you can see this. I'm going to slowly, gently pour it down. Okay, so see how I've done that? And let's see, I think I will get some purple in there on top, so I'm going to put some purple on there. Oops. Good to have a drop cloth. So I do have this butcher paper down on my counter to protect it. Another thing you could do is you could put down a piece of cardboard for your work surface. You could also use a vinyl tablecloth, a plastic shower curtain to protect your surface areas, give you a work area. Before I pour more paint, I want to show you something. I have a box lid that I've lined with foil. And then I have 2 berry baskets. I'll be putting my canvas on top of those berry baskets inside the box. That way my paint stays in the box when I pour. The berry baskets elevate the canvas because I will want the paint to pour down over the edges, and if I have it flat and I leave it there, as the paint dries, it will glue itself to whatever the canvas is sitting on. So I have it raised up so it will not stick. Okay, so that's waiting for me to finish getting my paint together. Okay, so I have gold and purple in there. I know that yellow and purple are opposite colors, so they're going to give me some of a wow factor when they react to one another. So I'm going to pour some, that yellow paint's a little thicker than I'd like. I'm going to take a different yellow that's much thinner and try a little bit of that. Okay. Let's see, what else do I want? I think I will get some red in there. And that's pretty thin. And the larger your canvas is, the more paint you need to put into your pour cup. I think I will get some of this blue in there. And let's see. I'm going to use a dollop of some silver right out of the bottle. Okay, I'm going to let that sit while I do another setup here for another canvas. And I'm going to start that one with some purple. And I'm actually going to throw some of that silver in straight from the bottle. I've never tried that before. We'll see how that works. It's an experiment. Okay, so I've got purple and silver in there. I'll use some of this nice thin yellow. And I think I'm going to use some of this blue. And then I'm actually going to pour a little more of that silver in there. And I think that's good. All right, so I've got my pour cups ready to go. Going to gently move this up to the side. I don't want to move my pour cups too much because I don't want to agitate it and have the paint mixing in there. So take a look at what that pour cup looks like. Okay. So I'm trying not to move it too much. So now I'm going to take my white paint and I'm going to pour a puddle in the middle of my canvas. Oops, I've got a lump in there. So I'm actually going to pick up that lump. Okay. So that's probably about a little more than 1/4 cup of paint that I've poured on there. And there's some bubbles. I'm not going to worry about the bubbles. And now I'm going to carefully pick up my pour cup And I'm going to gently pour it into the middle of that puddle of paint. And I think I'll do this. Okay. I'm going to do this just because I feel like doing that today. I'm going to put a dollop of gold in there. And now I'm going to manipulate my canvas and encourage things to start moving around. Generally, I turn it either clockwise or counterclockwise. If I keep going back and forth, I wind up just making the paint mix up too much. I do encourage it to flow off the sides. Oh, I like how that gold is popping. Okay. Oh, I like what this is doing. So I have come back and forth a little bit, but I don't want to do that too much because it will mush things together. All right. So I'm not even going to use silicone on this. I like the way those cells are starting to form. And if I want to, I can do this. I can pop it from the back and see what it will do. But again, I don't want it to mix too much. I want to have that sort of unmixed quality to it. Okay, another thing that I can do is if I see things that I want to move around, I can go in with a toothpick or plastic knife and I can move things around and make lines in there if I feel the need to do that. Now, as this dries, it can change again. And sometimes I go back when it's been drying for a while and I move it around a little more to see what I can do. Another thing that I sometimes do is I take it outside and I carefully apply a torch to the wet paint. But I really like that the way it is. I'm not going to do anything else with it, but I'm going to show you another pour. So let me move this out of the way. So I don't want to put this down on something like paper to dry, and if I can't elevate it, that might be a problem as it starts to dry. So I have wax paper off to the side, and I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to gently put it down on the wax paper. If the wax paper sticks when the paint is dry, I can peel the wax paper off very easily. All right, so I have another canvas here, and I'm going to do an experiment. So let's see if this works. Instead of using white paint from my puddle on this canvas, I'm going to see what happens if I do a puddle of gold paint. Also, to give you an idea, it's easy to see the gold paint on there. All right, and then I have this cup ready to pour. And you see how it starts to react before you even start moving things around. You're already getting things happening in there. So I don't know what to expect. I've never done a pour where I've used gold paint as the puddle paint instead of white. So I've got that poured on there. So this is a really great project to do during the summer when you can take it outside if it's not too hot. But if this looks like too much work for you, the paintings that you've seen me pour today will be available for sale on the Lodi Community Arts Center virtual gallery for June. Okay, I'm going to let some of that go that way. Another thing that you can do is if you get a canvas done with a pour, you could use that as the background for a piece of art. You could create a painting on top of that. Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of the silicone spray on here, and I hope you can see the reaction that it will get. Don't use the silicone spray unless you've got a well-ventilated area, and I'm going to move this a little bit away from my camera so I don't spray it on my lens. Move this around a little bit more. Okay. So do you see, can you see how those bubbles are starting to happen, those cells? And more of that will happen as it starts to dry. I really like that the way it is. Okay, I might move it around a little bit more. Okay. This is also a great project to do as a family. It's a great way to decorate a room. Okay, see what's happening there? Oh, I think I'm going to have to do more pours with gold as the puddle color. And that is how to do an acrylic pour. Oh, let me tell you something else. I have a lot of paint that's there on the foil. When it dries, I can peel it off, and I might use that as part of a collage. I could find different ways of using it. It also wraps nicely around things. So that's called skins. People talk about how they use the skins from their acrylic pours. So I hope you found that interesting. That is how to do a basic acrylic pour. And if you like these pours, as I said, they will be available for sale on the Lodi Community Arts Center website for our June virtual show. And the proceeds from the sale of these pours will go directly to our art center. Thank you so much for visiting our center. We look forward to seeing you again soon.